There's a very interesting op-ed piece in the Los Angeles Times titled "What America Gets for Its Dollars and Culpability in Africa." It's written by Helen C. Epstein. She's been teaching and writing about public health in Africa for years. And it's really focusing on Uganda and why Uganda health care is so awful, despite the fact that America and the World Bank gives the country a lot of money. And also, Uganda historically was like advanced medically. Here, I'll tell you this. Well before colonial times, the Baganda, Uganda's largest tribe, could distinguish plague from smallpox. The Baganda surgeons performed cesarean sections in the 19th century when the European doctors considered it too difficult and dangerous. In the 1950s and 60s, Ugandans were helped pioneer treatment for childhood cancers and malnutrition. When Singapore was looking to reform its health system in the 60s, it sent a delegation to Uganda. So I want to put that history out there so that there's a common misconception in the West with, African countries have always just been sort of third world and behind the times and whatever else. Not true. Not true. So what happened? So Idi Amin was the dictator in the 70s. He was a pretty brutal dictator. And then a new leader came to power. In 1986, President Yoweri Museveni came to power. Okay? He's been pretty brutal. But what he did, he formed a relationship with the United States. Basically what happened is we give them billions of dollars of military, of economic and military aid and diplomatic support. So then what Museveni does, he's basically our proxy warrior, and he's sending his troops around the region to weaken or topple other governments, particularly Islamic ones. So this is a long-standing history with America. We find some awful dictator, and as long as he's not Islamic, or even if they are, like the Saudis, as long as we get something for our corporate gain and dismantling, the global war on terror is just code for some country must have resources that we want, or they're geographically strategic for us. Because there's plenty of Muslim countries that we don't care about because there's nothing we need from them. So that's what we've been doing. And that's why we've allowed this awful dictator. This is what we've done. We did this with the fucking Shah of Iran in the 70s. So anyway, we have had this long history of backing these types of leaders just because it gains us some sort of financial or military strategic benefit. But this is what I want to go into a little more, some of the stuff that Museveni has done that we've been a part of that I wasn't aware of, and I want you guys to be aware. Maybe you already are, but so in 1990, Museveni backed the rebel invasion of Rwanda that triggered the genocide there 4 years later. He wasn't following American orders, but Bush and Clinton did nothing to stop him. They let it happen, right? Around the same time, Museveni obliged Washington by funneling weapons to Sudanese rebels fighting their hardline Islamic government. The war was brutal, its outcome disastrous. Breakaway South Sudan is now mired in civil war to this day, with Museveni propping up its leader, whose army has been accused of genocidal acts against minorities. In 1996, Uganda with Rwanda, now led by Museveni's allies, moved to oust Zaire's Mobutu Sese Seko, installing a new dictator and precipitating two wars that killed millions. The Clinton administration not only greenlit this march of folly, it also supplied equipment and training to brutal invading commandos. Oh, the Clintons. Is there no awful thing that they haven't been a part of? It turns out Mobutu has been making overtures to the Islamists in Sudan, and the U.S. likely wanted to ensure Zaire's, renamed Congo in 1997, wealth of minerals. Oh, there we go. Diamonds, gold, uranium, cobalt, and coltan used to make cell phones. We couldn't let that fall into the wrong hands. After the disastrous 2006 U.S.-Ethiopian invasion of Somalia, Museveni alone among African leaders sent peacekeepers to the ravaged nation. Instead of wiping out Islamic militants, the U.S. had undermined a moderate government and radicalized the youth militia Al-Shabaab, which went on to join the Al-Qaeda network. America still relies on Ugandan troops to fight Shabaab terrorists, which explains why we turn a blind eye to Museveni's abuses to this day. So how do we deal with this, right? How do we... So the writer met this Ugandan named Lawrence Kiwanuka Nasriko. Forgive me for mispronouncing these. Who was in Uganda as a child soldier, and, you know, he's seen all this awful stuff happen to friends and family, right? He's basically said that Ugandans cannot free themselves from Museveni's awfulness alone. Here's what they've tried. Last month, there's a thing in the Ugandan constitution that says the president can't lead past the age of 75. Museveni, shockingly enough, at age 73, was trying to pass legislation to change that. That triggered a lot of protests. What happened was security forces responded to the demonstrations with bullets, batons, tear gas, and whips fashioned from the strips of car tires. Courageous opposition members of the parliament and even members of Museveni's party tried to filibuster the debate on the age limit amendment, by singing the national anthem over and over. That's great. Eventually, a chair-throwing brawl broke out, and Museveni's plainclothes hit squad forcibly arrested 30 people. Oh God. They've the articles below, but they like Jesus. So who is this guy? And it's something that we should be aware of. But Nasriko, his thinking, and now this author's thinking, and I tend to agree with this journalist's thinking, is that we can do far more because our government is propping up the architecture of much of the pandemonium. Quote, Museveni is like a giant tree that kills everything in its shadow. Get rid of it and good things will begin to grow. As we examine America's commitment to democracy and human rights, its military actions, and the racism that has haunted it since its founding, we should also reckon with our treatment of Africa. The lives of its people matter too. Helen C. Epstein's latest book, Another Fine Mess, America, Uganda, and the War on Terror. That sounds like a great book to read. I have not read it, but I would like to read it. I appreciate Helen Epstein's column, and it shows her op-ed piece. It shows how ridiculous America yet again, and this is something you can do. You can petition lawmakers to say, why are we propping up this guy? Why are we giving them our money? Right? We don't have money for schools in this country. We don't have money for universal health care, but yet we have money to prop up a guy that just shoots people when he's trying to change the Constitution. So it's a good thing to follow and a good thing to pay attention to, and it's another example of why we need more progressives in there, because I can't even, it's just awful. And what typical, we go into a country and screw it up for our own personal gain, and then they divulge, they denigrate into civil war and all this stuff, and then we label, that's just that region, what are we supposed to do? They don't have civilization, or like we're better than them or something, which is complete nonsense. They had a pretty good civilization until we went in and ruined it. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for paying attention. And I appreciate all your comments and everything like that.